We have a long history here of being punctual with our events, and I'm eager to honor that history. And I want to welcome all of you. Wisconsin is one of the very few states in the country that does not have a statewide K-12 school board, something perhaps equivalent to the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents. It is the only state in the country that does not have a statewide school board, but does have a statewide elected chief school official, the state superintendent of public instruction, created by the Wisconsin Constitution. I'm Alan Borsuk. I'm a senior fellow here at Marquette Law School. I am so senior that I remember when state superintendent elections were about as interesting as state treasurer elections. But I think we can all vouch for the fact that that's no longer true. Okay, that's my humor for the day. A week from today, there will be an election for state superintendent. As it happens this year, it is the only statewide contest on the ballot. And we have with us, as you can plainly see, the two candidates. I am going to attempt to be fairly sparing in introductions and other niceties like that, and really try to have a policy-oriented conversation, I hope. But let me introduce on your right from the audience, Tony Evers, who is finishing his second term as state superintendent, and for 8 years before that was the deputy state superintendent. And in the middle, Dr. Lowell Holtz, who has been, among other things, superintendent in Beloit, superintendent of Whitnall, ran in 2009 for state superintendent against Tony and a field of others. And they are the two who won in the primary in February. And we are going to have the chance to have a conversation with them. If I may say so, this is going to both be a debate, but a little on the informal side, a little more conversational, I hope. But it is an academic setting, a courtroom setting. So I would ask that there be no demonstrations, applause, other things, doing the wave, whatever it might be, except for at 2 points, one of which will be at the end, and one of which is right now. I'd like to welcome Dr. Holtz and Dr. Evers to Marquette Law School. Thank you. And I am going to offer them each a chance to start with an opening statement of, I hope, about 2 minutes, and we'll have a closing statement from them. By the way, we are not going to take questions from the audience. I think it's just going to be the three of us talking, and I hope mostly the two of them talking. So we will begin with Dr. Holtz.
Thank you. You need to know a little bit something about me as to why I'm in the race. I totally believe that God is in control, and I really believe that I'm very passionate about kids and finding the best things for our kids. That's why I decided to run. And 8 years ago, after I was bumped out of the primary, Tony made a statement that I totally supported. And that's why I supported him then 8 years ago. It says, we need to be better. Well, the problem is, over the last 8 years, we've seen a steady, rapid decline, not upward, but to the bottom of the barrel, where we are now labeled as the worst state in the nation for graduation gaps and the worst state in the nation for achievement gaps. I don't think that's something that's acceptable for anybody. Right along with that, we have the highest incarceration rate for African American males. There is definitely a direct correlation between lack of educational opportunities and incarceration rates. We have over 7,000 kids drop out every year, and it costs us an additional $503 million every year. We're wasting money, and we're not doing the job with our kids, especially our large urban area minority kids. We can do better, and that's why I'm passionate about running for the office of state superintendent because I want to see things better for our kids.
Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for being here today. Actually, my son is an alumnus of Marquette Law School, and for those of you in Marquette, you should be glad to know that he's still paying that off. Anyway, it is good to be here, and I'm jazzed about the present. I'm scared about the present. We have lots of things that we need to address as the state of Wisconsin, but I just want to talk about some of the things that have been going well. Suspensions are down all across the state of Wisconsin. Expulsions are down all across the state of Wisconsin. Our ACT scores still, we remain near the top of the country, and we've adopted high standards, and I feel very proud about that. In addition, we've been really working hard, and we've had some success around the area of career and technical education. I know a four-year degree is absolutely important, but there are other avenues for our young people, and we have to make sure that they're prepared for the four-year degrees and for career and technical education programs. We've been very successful at that. We've been also very successful in the last 5 years. We've doubled the number of young people in our high schools that have received dual enrollment credits, where they're getting credit in high school, credit in college at the same time. It challenges our high school kids, and it also provides them an entree to higher education that has been partially paid for already and reduces the debt. 82% of our schools and 91% of our school districts have met expectations on a very rigorous report card. And I have to tell you, every time that I did it this morning, you get into the 30,000-foot level like I am, and you think things are kind of crazy and you're detached from reality. I visited 95th Street School today, and the work that they're doing there and the way that they've really embraced the funding and the co-sponsorship of General Electric Corporation really done some transformational things in our schools. I see that all the time. Do we have problems that we need to resolve? Absolutely, as a state. But a lot of those problems are financial in nature, and I've been very hopeful that we're reaching a better trajectory now than we've ever been before. The governor has adopted some of my budget, and so we're going to work hard to make that revenue issue and spending issue a better place for our public schools going forward. So I believe that we're making some great progress. We have more progress to make, but most importantly, thanks for being here today to listen to both of us.
Let's start by passing go and collecting $200. The governor's budget offered basically $200, rounding it off, in each of the next 2 years, and increased aid for all students, not only public, but charter and voucher. That immediately started getting resistance from Republicans in the legislature. Just this morning, the governor tweeted, "We will fight to protect our increased investment in K-12 education to build a strong workforce in Wisconsin." The curious thing is the fight's going to be with Republicans and not with Democrats. As state superintendent, whichever of you wins next Tuesday, what do you see as your advocacy on that and your role in that? Let's ask Dr. Evers first.
Well, first of all, I was pleased. Every biennium I present my budget to the Department of Administration and the governor's staff and the governor. And normally it's somewhat of a ho-hum exercise. And this year I was pleased that just before so I did that again this last November. And this time, as the governor was preparing to release his budget, he actually gave me a call and said, "You're going to like this one." And I said, "Well, thank God." And I asked for a $700 million increase in the budget because, frankly, our public schools have been deteriorating in the state support. Everybody knows that. And so when he told me that he was adopting a good share of my budget, in addition, I'll talk about this later, mental health, which is a huge issue for our kids, and some really aggressive additional funding for rural schools, but then also the $200 that Alan referenced in categorically each year of the biennium. So it was a conundrum. I mean, I will be supporting the governor's proposal. I will be also supporting my proposal in how it's distributed differently. I think it should be distributed equitably and not equally. I think there's a huge gulf in that discussion. But I think that's, and I have to say this with some bragging. I mean, people may not believe this, but I do try to reach common ground with folks if I have a chance, and this is one of those. We have to fight for every dollar we get for our public schools. There's no question about that. And clearly it's going to be a fight with Republicans and the transportation lobby and you name it. And but I have to tell you that over the last two general elections, last November and last April, over 600,000 people in the state of Wisconsin voted in school referendums to raise their own taxes on themselves to keep their public schools strong. That's an extraordinary statement from the people of our state and the local organizations and advocacy groups that are out there. And the governor hears that, politicians hear that. I'm going to keep talking about that. I'm in front of the Joint Finance Committee Thursday, and it's always a treat to be with them. And it will be a treat to be with them this time because we're starting from a better place, and I believe the trajectory is good. I hope you're okay, Alan.
I'm great.
I think that was a comment for me to shut up. So I'll take that cue from here on out.
$200. What do you think of it?
It'll be interesting to see how it comes out of joint finance. I've had the opportunity to sit through many long sessions with the joint finance hearings, and you see tons of people go in front of them and testify for extra funds for their different organizations, and some of it's very heart-rending. And so it's like doing your own personal budget at home. You know, you have to decide where's the priorities. You know, there's more things that need to be done usually than there is cash at hand, and so you have to prioritize. I do believe that the governor is committed to education for our kids, and he wants to provide adequate funding. I do like the way that he proposed it as far as targeted funds for different main areas. You know, the urban transportation, rural transportation, I think that's very important. If you drive in western Wisconsin and notice how far it is between cities and realize how long those kids must be on buses and the amount of money that it takes out of their educational budget to pay for the transportation issues, I think it was great that he recognized that need. I don't have a strong, there is no scientific correlation between higher spending and higher academic achievement. If you do a scattergram, you're going to see it doesn't impact it the way people think it does. The most successful nation at educating their kids spends almost the least amount on total education funds. So I'm really interested in seeing how it comes out. I do know that there will be adequate funding, and it's not going to come out as it's presented. It never does.
And just, if I could jump in here just for a second. First of all, I think it is this is a constitutional office, and I don't take that lightly. For those of you who know the history of this, it was created by our forefathers. Apparently, we didn't have any foremothers back then. In 1848, in the Constitutional Convention, and it made it very clear, the people of the state and the people that made that Constitution, that this is an important office and it's reporting directly to the people of the state. That's why I think this position has to take stands, and I'll take stands on a whole bunch of things, even if it's somewhat tilting at windmills. This one is not. I will stand for more money for our kids every single time. We have 860,000 kids in the state of Wisconsin that we have to be concerned about. We have to make sure they have adequate resources. Now, I will say that I have read research too about and I've been doing this for 40-some years, and there's lots of research that says money does matter, and there's lots of research that says money doesn't matter. So we can cherry pick those, right? But here's my thing. If you take a look at the last 3 presidents who have had children of a school age, the average, keep this figure in mind, the average tuition paid by those presidents for those children to go to school was $38,000. You can tell me that money doesn't matter. We are not asking for $38,000. We're asking for essentially a cost of living from especially reductions that we've had 5 years ago. So I'm adamant. Do I believe that money makes a difference? Yes. Do I believe that when our suburban schools that are doing great work as well as MPS, they have the much better facilities than the children that attend Milwaukee Public Schools? Hell yes, that's an issue. Absolutely, it's an issue. Parents choose schools because of facilities. Parents choose schools. I mean, go online and look at the websites of our choice competitors in this city. They talk about small class size. They talk about safety. They talk about facilities. All those things matter. And the way they matter is in the terms of financial resources. We have to have it. We have to have other things. We have to have great teachers and all that. But resources are at the core of this.
You want a second round on that?
No, because there is a major league difference. You looked at the choice schools, you looked at the voucher schools. They don't spend anywhere near the amount. But they outperformed. If you notice the last study that came out, the Will study, that apples to apples, they did better across the board.
Well,
and so, I think adequate funding is important, but money is not the thing that's going to save our failing schools. It's not going to save our failing schools. It's getting in and doing what's important. It's not artificially inflating graduation rates. It's not forcing or removing safety from our schools because principals aren't allowed to suspend or expel kids. We need to be transparent, open, and honest. So that's all I have to say on the funding issue.
Are we? Is anybody inflating graduation rates? I've talked to thousands of teachers across the state. They tell me time after time after time that they're not allowed to fail kids. On the school report card, graduation rates is part of that report card. It's part of your score. That was brilliant. If you want to inflate your graduation rates, you know how to inflate graduation rates, don't retain anybody. Ask teachers in suburban Milwaukee, ask teachers in the city, ask teachers in rural Wisconsin, and say, how many kids have you been allowed to retain over the past 8-10 years? You're going to be amazed. And when you talk about, you heard the investigative reporting that went on in Milwaukee about the artificial decline in suspensions and expulsions because teachers are not allowed to suspend or expel kids. They send the kids to the office, the kids are sent right back. Safety is a big issue in our schools. It's a huge issue. When we have a dozen fights in one of our city schools in a day, that's not an environment that's conducive to learning. The question of the day that I would always have is, do you know how to turn around our failing schools? Well, let's talk.
We've gone all over the landscape with that answer. And I don't know where to start except for this. If you ask any researcher, what is the most definitive description of a student succeeding in college, is not ACT, it's teacher grades at the high school level. So if there's all this freaking explosion of kids, of teachers cheating and school districts cheating, by God, it doesn't show up in the research, Lowell.
No, I didn't say the schools were cheating. I didn't say the teachers were cheating. What I said was, it's on the report card, and if it's on the report card, they're competing with each other. I'm not repeating myself. Listen, they're not competing with each other. They're competing to get the best score on that report card because it's a competitive environment.
You said they're cheating.
I did not. See, you're very good at twisting words around, but I never said anybody was cheating. The teachers are not cheating. The schools aren't cheating. They're being forced to get the best score they can on that report card. It's just like the Common Core issues. And their ability to take away opportunities it's frightening. You literally should go around and talk to teachers and ask them, in the past year, have you been able to fail anybody? Talk to them, Tony.
Hey, Lowell, I talk to teachers almost every single day I'm in office, almost every single day. And I've never heard a teacher say that, and I've asked that question. So you can talk about collusion, you can talk about whatever you want. The fact of the matter is, teacher grades are the most important thing as it relates to achievement at post-secondary. And if that's still true today, as it was 20 years ago, then there is no cheating.
Let's talk about Milwaukee a little bit. I have specific questions for each of you, and you'll each have a chance to respond to the other. Dr. Evers.
Yeah.
You've been superintendent 8 years. You were deputy 8 years before that. One of the things Dr. Holtz has said is he's had his chance to make things better in Milwaukee. Why aren't things better in Milwaukee? I mean, we still have, in all the sectors, especially the vouchers and MPS, I've got the numbers right in front of me here, less than 1 in 5 kids are rated as proficient in reading. Less than 1 in 7 kids are rated as proficient in math. Why haven't things gotten better?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that someplace in the middle of my regime, we made it more difficult to be proficient. You have to recognize that. We raised that, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. So we raised the bar significantly. We raised the bar very significantly. So any achievement has been kind of masked by that. I think if you talk to Dr. Driver and other people in MPS, you'll see that there has been some improvement. And I just came from 95th Street School where they talked about significant improvement on their benchmark test scores. What we've done, and you know, I've been accused of kind of turning my back on MPS and all that. We spent a lot of time here. We worked with MPS prior to Dr. Driver being here and made things more consistent across the curriculum, more consistent across the school district. We, at the time when we started that work, we were facing huge mobility issues. Average second grade kid would be moving over 4 times a year in Milwaukee Public Schools. And in order to do that with a school district where every school is choosing their own programs, that kid would fail in second grade and never succeed after that, or very difficult to succeed. So we made sure that we were consistent across the school district. We worked with the special master that was appointed by the federal judge on the special ed case. So we made some really good progress around that. We helped the school district implement a positive behavior and intervention system. There's many schools, I think 100 schools in the Milwaukee area school district that have been viewed and recognized around that. And that is the reason why we have fewer suspensions and expulsions. It's not because principals are saying you can't do that. It's because they've been successful with kids that have had some behavior issues. We've been successful in that. We've also encouraged summer learning, which I think is a huge issue in Milwaukee. Only 5,000 kids attend summer school in Milwaukee. If you go to Green Bay, 10,000 kids go to summer school. Additional learning time is significant. We've really worked hard to increase that. We have made some progress, Alan. Not as much as we'd like, but in turn, we also have to recognize, and this is an important thing, and we're not ducking the issue here, but we have to recognize that abject poverty and difficult home situations and parents working 2 or 3 jobs, that isn't always conducive to a kid learning well. And so we're recognizing, and frankly, somewhat tardily, and as you see with the Journal Sentinel articles all this week, and I think began last week, talked about social and emotional learning, talked about trauma. Those are really important things. If kids don't overcome that issue, they're never going to learn. And so we need to kind of rally around some of those social and emotional things. Chasing achievements test scores is absolutely important. The teachers here recognize that. But we also have to recognize that kids have social and emotional issues that need to be addressed as early as possible.
Dr. Holtz, why aren't things better in Milwaukee?
Because I don't believe, number one, The failure isn't the fault of the kids. The failure isn't the fault of the teachers or the principals or the superintendent. It's the system that's in place. Milwaukee is struggling with high poverty and high dense poverty areas. We have, unfortunately, way too many failing schools. We have been identified. Name any state in the nation, any state. Wisconsin is worse. We're worse in graduation gaps. We're worse in achievement gaps. We might be doing okay with part of the population, but we sure are failing with our minority population, big time. And that absolutely is not acceptable. We have to do a better job. You can't be the worst in the nation. That means you're turning your back on our kids. High poverty areas, we have homes and parents in the Milwaukee area that won't let their kids sit in the front rooms of the house because of the bullets that go through the walls. We've had stories in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel about the grandparent sitting in the family or in the living room and their grandchild getting shot by accident while they were holding their grandchild. High poverty relates to that. Remember the highest incarceration rate for African American males? We're failing them at tremendous rates. You have two choices, and this is not. There's many choices, but there's two ways out of crime or out of poverty. One is education, and one is crime. If we're failing them in education, that's a problem. We can't take programs from Washington, D.C. and say, look, here's a school improvement grant, put this program in place, and you'll be just fine. Because the Department of Education, at the close of the Obama administration, came out with their 400-some-page report and said, when you impose those programs from outside, they absolutely fail. They spent $3.5 billion on those school improvement grants, and their report said they didn't have any positive impact on the kids. Nothing. What we need to do is get in and be a supportive group. You need to go in, do some of the creative things, the innovative zones, do some of the, you need to put in a support team that's going to work with the community, with the neighborhood, with the parents, with the businesses, and you need to have one that works on the inside, that focuses on the climate and the culture, and raises the bar, raises the expectations. Those reports that, there was a great report on Madison students where they're only 54% of their African American population is graduating. They asked the kids why. They said because there's no expectations for them. The bar is set really, really low. Well, a while back, Milwaukee had 55 failing schools. I went to bed the next night, woke up, we had 0 failing schools. We have failing children now, not failing schools. When I was a kid, it was important to name the problem, own the problem, say it's not somebody else's fault, and fix it. If you knew how to fix something like the tragedy of the failing schools, and it's against all human decency, if you knew how to fix it and you didn't, that's malfeasance. That's criminal.
Well, that maybe leads into my question directed primarily to you. This, shall we say, eye-catching exchange you had with John Humphreys in December, your opponent, the third candidate in the primary. The memos, and I've read them, envisioned having a deputy, one of the two of you, whoever lost apparently, who would have almost total control over Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha, and Madison, disempower the school board. We're going to make some noise, I believe was the phrase. What were you thinking?
I was thinking, number one, those weren't my words. Number two, I don't believe in imposing programs from outside. I'm exactly the opposite of that. We were encouraged to see if we could work together. We had no agreement. And it was a last desperate act of someone trying to get through the primary by taking something that was also altered and doctored from 2 months earlier and waved in front of a newspaper or rather a radio reporter saying, oh, I was so offended by this. In reality...
Whose words were they? They appear to be your words.
They weren't. And it's never... Matter of fact, if you go to the Wisconsin Elections Commission, they looked at it and said there was absolutely nothing that was done that was wrong. We did talk.
That's a little different question.
Right. We did talk about whether you could work together later. For example, I believe Libby and he ran against each other, and then she hired him as his deputy superintendent. It's like the presidential race. You look for who's going to be in your cabinet. Is this someone you could use? That was all the discussion was supposed to be for after the primary. He was going into this, it was not true, about trying to buy somebody out before. Because as I said before, I prayed a lot about this before I got into it. I was not about to abandon my faith, my family, my friends, and take some offer that was less money than I was making when I retired. That's ridiculous. And so I think that was thrown out to distract people from what are the real issues. And if he could smear me, he had a chance of getting through the primary. Well, it didn't work that way.
If you had your way, how would Milwaukee schools be run? Would you get rid of the school board?
No. The first thing you do is you go in and work with the people that are there first and foremost. And like I said, was sending support groups in. I talked with Darien. I talked to some of the people I know and trust that are in the district and say, let's talk about the schools and what are our opportunities, what are things we'd like to try, are there things you'd like to try that you haven't tried before? Where can we provide more support than we have in the past? I can send some support teams in to work with collaborating and coming up with a plan for a neighborhood school. You can do those innovation zones. They're very, Tennessee, I think, is where they started, Memphis, maybe. But basically, they're under the school district, but they can have a smaller neighborhood school board that works with the elementary schools, the middle school, and high school, so parents have more hands-on. We have lots of neighborhoods in Milwaukee, but one huge school district. So how can we give parents more control over what's happening? They feel powerless way too many times. Those are things that I would like to work with when you come to Milwaukee or any of our other struggling areas. I'm not the person that's going to come in and say, you need to do this, in order to be better. I'm going to sit down and work with you, and we're going to put a plan together, because if you have ownership of the plan, the parents have ownership of the plan, the neighborhood has ownership of the plan, it'll be successful.
Your response, Dr. Evers?
Sounds like just what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing, Lowell. And I'm glad you've come around to my point of view. So here's the I want to go back to your original question. And of course, I wasn't part of that duo writing on the back of a bar napkin. I never thought this race would be about integrity, folks. I've run 2 races successfully against 2 very conservative Republicans, and I never once doubted their integrity. Never once. So I'll have to lay it out here. I was amazed that 2 opponents, both educators, were sitting down in the now famous restaurant in southern Wisconsin talking about, well, first of all, if you get out, and I'll tell you, I never talked to Libby Burmester once about a deputy job, and I can probably tell you the exact date she called up and asked me to be deputy, and it was long after she won. So we didn't meet. And
there's nothing nefarious here, Tony. It was a discussion.
I'm talking right now.
Do you want to hold my hand?
No, I don't, but I want to finish talking. Express
that integrity that you said you have.
Let Dr. Evers finish, and you'll get a chance.
Here's the deal. We had two of my opponents on the back of a napkin talking, and your handwriting, talking about 2 things. One,
false. I never wrote anything down. Not a thing. Tell the story the right way, or don't tell it at all.
Geez, I'm sorry, Lowell. They're talking together about 2 things. One is one gets out of the race, the other would win or continue on, vice versa, get $150,000, get a driver. That's true. The second thing they talked about was with the 5 largest school districts in the state, including the one that you didn't mention is Green Bay, that the person that would be deputy or in this special position with a driver would be able to get rid of the school boards and parcel off their failing schools or underperforming schools to either voucher providers or charter school providers. That's where I have to make a clarification here. The elections board found that not to be bribery. Fine, the law doesn't count on that. But what is true is that these two talked about doing that with the 5 largest school districts in the state. That's an integrity thing. If that's your position, you take that position and advocate for that publicly. You don't do it on the back of a napkin in a restaurant. That's where integrity is an issue.
I'm gonna suggest we move on because I got about 15 more issues here.
Good.
Vouchers. How about them vouchers?
How about that?
We are in the 27th year of the Milwaukee voucher program, the 19th year since the major expansion following the 98 state Supreme Court decision. What have we learned in Milwaukee? What does the nation learn from Milwaukee? We'll give Dr. Evers for a shot
Okay.
on this.
Well, there's no discernible difference in achievement. That's the bottom line. I know the Wills report showed that differently. They weren't comparing apples to apples. They were comparing apples to giraffes, and that's just my own opinion. However,
In what way? Where's the comparison breakdown?
I don't
They did say that's the title of the report, is apples to apples.
yeah, I'm not sure they took into account special education students and the difference between.
They did overtly not take that into account. They
That I
said
don't know why, but that's the truth. So anyway, that's a big issue. But that aside, we've had 26 years of vouchers in the state of Wisconsin. Began in Milwaukee 26 years ago. And regardless of the groups that study it, there's no discernible difference. And frankly, why should there be? I mean, those kids are coming from the same issues of poverty. They're coming from the same difficulties that they faced growing up. Some of them have trauma. And so I guess we shouldn't expect discernible difference. And then, so we moved from that 26 years ago, it's going to raise all boats. That didn't happen. And then the argument was, well, hell, it's cheaper. So why don't we, if we're not concerned about the results, then it's less expensive. Well, that's not necessarily true either. We factor in transportation, special education, and so on. So basically, we have morphed into choice is a value that's higher than the common good. And, it's like going to the grocery store. Our grocery stores have as much choice as possible, and that's kind of where we're at in this arena. So my goal around choice is quite simple. I think we have to make sure that our public schools, our traditional public schools, are not harmed financially by expansion of vouchers. And I think the governor actually was there in his budget. He did not ask for any increase in the number of vouchers in the state of Wisconsin. And they have to be in the same accountability system. We've been working on that for a long time. I think we're going to get there, to be honest with you, but it's been a long time coming. So those are the pillars that I have around vouchers. But I know that my friends and colleagues in the choice community that we work with regularly, and we can do that. I know I'm viewed as an opponent to vouchers, but the fact of the matter is we can walk and chew gum at the same time at the department. And if the legislature says, here's a program, you need to administer it, we administer it, and we administer it with great fidelity. But the fact of the matter is, when indeed it's impacting the financial resources available to our school districts, that's a problem, and I'm going to speak up about it.
Dr. Holtz,
Okay,
what have we learned from Milwaukee vouchers?
I got to see firsthand, so full disclosure, my dad, when he retired from Milwaukee Police Department, went back to the seminary and became a pastor and was called to the inner city of Milwaukee. I was a public school principal at that time, and he called me up and said, I have a voucher school, one of the first voucher schools in Milwaukee. Come and take a look. When I went there, I was amazed at the positive difference it was having in those kids' lives. Many different languages were spoken. There were great articles in the Journal Sentinel about, the choir and all the different languages the kids had. But it was very successful. And then I started wondering, I wanted to know why the ex-superintendent of the Milwaukee Public Schools would be so adamantly supportive of vouchers. So I called him up. And I said, Dr. Fuller, I know you've been the superintendent in Milwaukee. Why would you support vouchers? And he said, it's clear. He says, we have some of the best schools in the nation in Milwaukee, which we do, but we also have some of the worst schools in the nation. And he said, I don't want to force a parent ever to have to send a child to a failing school. He said, so from his perspective, it's a civil rights issue. Now, moving fast forward, I don't have any problem as a public school superintendent or principal with competition. Matter of fact, competition can be good. I don't want money taken from the public schools. Vouchers exist in the first place because we were failing way too many kids. Our voucher and choice schools, you can't say they don't make a difference. You go and visit a school like St. Marcus, and on the first day of school, when those 4-year-old and 3-year-old kids are coming into that school, not only are the kids skipping in, but the parents are, because they realize they just won the lottery, because their kids have a shot at going to high school when they get out of 8th grade. We have schools in Milwaukee where the parent that takes their 4-year-old in and knows that 10 years later, there are schools where 0% of the kids are proficient after 10 years in reading. There's schools where 0% of the kids are proficient after 10 years in math.
That's true in the voucher program as well.
Right, and we have one of the most highly regulated choice and voucher programs in the nation. That's well documented. And I think if you ignore the studies, the will studies, you know, it's like burying your head in the sand. We can learn from each other. We can do better. We can make our public schools as good or better. We need to really focus on turning things around for all of our kids. Way too many of our kids don't have the opportunity to go to voucher choice. Those are random selections. They can't pick them. You know, so it's...
What do you mean? They
you know,
can't
people
pick
sometimes say, well, they pick the best kids for...
Oh, the
choice
schools
and voucher.
can't pick. I thought you
yeah.
meant the parent. Okay.
Right. It's whoever applies gets in, and then once it's filled, they go into a lottery system. You know, it's very much like open enrollment for public schools. So from my perspective, sorry for hitting the mic. From my perspective, it's a program that benefits parents. It's a program that benefits students. Does it benefit all of our students? No. Does it provide parents choice? Yes. And I'm all about parents having the final say on where their kids go to school.
What happens, there's a question for both of you, and Dr. Holtz, you can go first. What happens when a parent chooses a bad school, especially a voucher school? They're still out there, the bad schools.
Oh, sure. And we've...
But what's the role of the state, the DPI? What would your role be as superintendent in doing something about those schools? Frankly, I've been in them, and they're bad investment of public money.
I believe you. Believe me. And that's one of the reasons why we have one of the most regulated systems to watch over that. We've closed down charter schools and voucher schools because they were failing. How many public schools have we closed down?
We've never closed a voucher school because kids weren't achieving well. We've never done that. It's usually been for malfeasance, somebody screwing up, spending money the wrong way, but we've never closed a voucher school because they have poor achievement.
Because
we don't have that authority. We don't have that authority. Simple as that. We don't have that authority.
Should DPI have that authority?
I don't believe we have that. I don't believe we should have that authority any more than we should with public schools. I don't believe that. I think we have an obligation to work with our public schools, and we don't have that authority to work with voucher schools to make them better. But I just have to swing around on one issue, and I know we're talking Milwaukee, but the fact of the matter is, as we have moved this program statewide, we've moved from a program of parental choice to a program of subsidizing public or private and parochial schools. Well over half the kids, as we move statewide, are already in those schools. They're not flooding from public schools to parochial and private schools. They're already there. And so what we've done as a state is value choice to the point where we are subsidizing the education of public and private school student or private and parochial school kids in the state of Wisconsin. That's our public policy in this state, folks. That is what we have accomplished. And do I think that's right? I went to a Catholic grade school. My parents paid for it. Simple as that. And that has changed.
Dr. Evers is opposed to expanding the statewide availability of vouchers. And this is the season, this is budget season. What's your position on that? It's going to be a hot issue in the next couple months.
I don't mind personally, I don't mind expanding school choice. I think competition is good. We don't have to fear, if we have successful schools, you don't have to fear a parochial school or a private school. If parents choose to send their kids there, by all means, I support parents to have the choice. They're going to choose schools where they believe their kids are going to be the most successful. I was at a very successful suburban school district, had great staff, great teachers, and if our kids went to the Lutheran school or the Catholic school, they went there because their parents wanted them to have a Lutheran or Catholic education. That was it, not because we were failing school. We could work together because most of those kids were going to end up in our high school. So when I was in northeastern Wisconsin, we had joint councils on education, which had the private schools, the parochial schools, and the public schools, because we recognized we wanted all of our kids to be successful. It was a community. And for parents to have choice in community is a great thing. Last time I was in a large urban district, there were 2,400 kids in the high school. Not every kid does 2,400 other kids well. So it's good to have options for them, whether it was charter, we started a number of charter schools, or choice schools.
Especially since 2001 and 2 and the passage of No Child Left Behind, a key role of the DPI has been as the agent or implementer of federal policy in Wisconsin on education. To my knowledge, there's been a change in the wind.
Really?
What's coming? How are you reacting to it? And what do you see as your role as state superintendent, either of you, if you are there for the next 4 years? We'll let Dr. Holtz go first on this.
First of all, I think it's an excellent opportunity to get rid of some of the federal overreach into state rights. For example, the Common Core. The Common Core hurts the kids who need the help the most. The parents are struggling with how to help their kids at home. We need to do something to eliminate that federal overreach, because in reality, when it was sold, it was a great, it was sold as the best program ever. It's going to be raising the bar, all those types of things. But going back to that report card issue, it's if you want your kids to score well on that report card, Tony will say, rightly so, that Wisconsin Constitution says each district can pick their own standards. But the problem is, if you're tested on these standards, what kind of superintendent or principal or school board would you be if you didn't align your curriculum so your kids would have the best opportunity of success? So basically, who's deciding our curriculum? It's not even from Madison. It's coming from the federal government. So the only way to achieve that, and that part of the reason that I supported, I know that I heard that question that the last one I saw you moderate was Scott Jensen, and I believe it was Dr. Underwood, Julie. That Scott Jensen said that she was very passionate about kids, but she would also give control back to the states rather than the federal government reaching in. I'm very much about local control, so I'm happy for it.
Talk about President Trump and Secretary DeVos specifically and their proposals, some pretty major cuts already, perhaps more coming. The CLC money, AmeriCorps, Title II.
I'd like to look at start with the positive things. The money that was put into the public school choice, so public school to public school, was tremendous. As well, there was some private, some for vouchers for choice, but a lot was public school choice. The thing that caught my eye was the reduction in the teacher training, and I have to see how that's going to play out, because I want to give our teachers the best, obviously, training they can get for the best opportunity for success. So I want to give Tony some time to respond.
Yeah.
So how about that, Donald Trump?
How about that, President Trump?
President Trump.
Yes. Actually, I was in Washington, D.C. last week, and I had a chance to actually ask Secretary DeVos a question, and they tried to avoid me because they knew that I was going to ask her a difficult question, but I finally persevered. And I asked her about Title II, and Title II of ESSA deals with, we received $35 million from the federal government for professional development. Both public school teachers and private school teachers get that money, or the schools that have them. So I asked her the question. I said, "So what's up with that kind of question?" And I talked about the fact that we have this really impending teacher shortage in this country, and we have to make sure that all our teachers are adequately prepared to do great things in the classroom, and part of that is ongoing professional development. And oh, by the way, you're taking away $35 million from the state of Wisconsin, so what do you think about that? And she said, "Thank you very much for your input." That was it. So here's the deal. I absolutely find the cuts that were made to our public schools it's breathtaking, because we're building a wall and we're increasing the military on the backs of our kids. A, they're taking away $35 million from our teachers and professional development. B, they took all the money away from us as it relates to the after-school program. In Milwaukee, that is huge. Think about all the nonprofits, Boys and Girls Clubs, and others that have invested gazillions of dollars and their sweat and blood to make after-school programming in Milwaukee some of the best you find any place in this country. Gone. Money for pre-college scholarships for the poorest kids in our state. Gone. Public TV and radio money. Gone. Money for public libraries that comes from the federal government. Gone. Now, the thing that concerns me the most around this is that people will say, "Oh, jeepers, Congress will never do that. We can trust our Congress people to take care of that." And that might be true. But here's the deal, folks. This is the first public policy position that this president has taken on education, and he's wiping us out. We can't, I mean, it's great if Congress doesn't does deal with this in a positive fashion. But we have to call out the president and his administration on this. I have candidates that have, when Betsy DeVos was first introduced as a potential Secretary of Education, thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. We have to understand what we're up against here, folks, and we have to fight for our kids. That's the bottom line. 860,000 plus another 30,000 in the voucher program in this state. They need teachers that have good professional development. That money will now be gone. So I'm against it.
I figured that out. We're actually heading towards the finish here, which I've still got about 14 questions. But let's make one, and it's going to be way too short. I'd say about 90 seconds for each of you. Your reaction to the term teacher pipeline and what you would do in the next 4 years as the superintendent to strengthen or at least maintain the supply of teachers statewide. We'll let Dr. Evers go.
So you want this to be short, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually,
I don't, but I have to.
Okay. We already have a teacher shortage in the state of Wisconsin. It's maybe not as oppressive as it is in northern Wisconsin, but it's a huge issue. It's born out of Act 10. I opposed Act 10. I understand that some people liked it, some people didn't like it. Doesn't matter to me whether you liked it or not. It caused divisive rhetoric around the profession of teaching, and we have to change that. And changing that is free. We have to change the rhetoric. We have to honor the profession. We have to make sure that our teachers are elevated in the right place. We have lost a generation of young people going into the profession. We can change that. Changing the rhetoric, I think we have to pay our teachers more. In addition, we have to work with our high school kids to make sure that they understand the importance of the profession. I'm visiting Pewaukee High School tomorrow in their special program where they actually have kids doing internships as working with teachers in their school district. That's where we have to start. We have to start with those young people in our schools.
Okay. we're losing some of the best teachers we have. You want to stop the shortage, keep the good people that you have. Our teachers do a great job, but they're extremely frustrated. When I talk with middle school teachers from MPS, they told me they spent over an hour every day inputting data. And that's time that they used to spend working on things for their kids. You know, reviewing what happened the day before, the informal assessments, what could they do better? Inputting data for over an hour. And it's all related to educator effectiveness, and you put that together with Common Core and the checklists and the data points. The largest teachers unions in the United States, like the Chicago Teachers Union, are adamantly opposed to Common Core because it takes time away from their teachers. We need to return safety and discipline. That's why teachers are leaving as well. They're frustrated. They're not able to do what they were called into the profession to do. They wanted to touch the future. They wanted to change children's lives. We need to give that opportunity back to them, and then look at creative ways of bringing more people into the pipeline. If kids that are in high school see their teachers enjoying themselves while they're teaching, they'll start thinking, hey, maybe that's something I want to do. If they see their teachers frustrated, they don't want that. They wouldn't touch that job with a 10-foot pole. So I'd like to do more for the teachers that we have and encourage our kids to consider the profession so it becomes a rewarding profession once more where it should be.
We are up to closing statements already. And Dr. Holtz went first at the opening. Dr. Evers will go first here. Again, about 2 minutes, let's say.
And thank you so much for being here and being part of this this conversation today. I would say that I've always been a glass half full person, and I continue to be, even with the struggles that we have in the state. Again, I was at 95th Street School today, and I asked teachers some of the very questions that Dr. Holtz just talked about, and they felt buoyed and jazzed about the future, just as I do. They felt very confident around their leadership. They felt very confident around the support that they're having, and none of them are giving up. In fact, in every classroom I was in, there was at least 3 or 4 people from UW Whitewater and UW Milwaukee in the classroom helping those teachers and preparing to be teachers. So I believe we can. I believe we can tame this dragon around teacher shortage. But the main thing is we have to start paying teachers more, and also respecting the profession. One last thing that I have to say that is really important to me, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it, so I'll talk about it quickly now, is 1 in 5 of our kids in the state of Wisconsin have struggle with mental health issues. And if we don't get on top of that, and that is part and parcel of trauma-informed care that we see that's so important for the kids in our urban areas, and frankly, that First Lady Tonette Walker has been advocating across the state also. We need to get on top of that issue. We have, the governor, thank the Lord, has put money in the budget and took my mental health proposals as far as teacher preparation, teacher in-service, making sure that we have more social workers in our schools, and making sure that we're able to access public and private partnerships to make this happen. 1 in 5 is a huge issue, and it's preventing our kids from learning well. If we don't get on top of this now, it's going to be worse. I hope you will take part in advocating for that. Last thing I have to say, you have to vote. Get out, whether you like Lowell, you like me, it doesn't matter to me. We have to get people out to vote. It's a critical race. It's a constitutional office that I feel very strongly about. And whatever you can do to get your friends and relatives and anybody above age 18 involved in this important election, I encourage you to do that. This will be a 20% turnout max. And every percentage we get above that, I think, is a bonus. So please get out and vote. This is an important race. It's about our kids. It's about our 860,000 kids in the state of Wisconsin. Thanks for being here today.
Stop failing our kids. We can't be the worst in the nation. Look around this room. There's incredibly talented people in this room. We can get together on this. The kids don't care if you're a Democrat. They don't care if you're a Republican. All they care about is whether you care. We need to get passionate about it. And passion has been lacking over the past number of years. Otherwise, we wouldn't be dead last. There's no excuse for it. We have to stop making excuses for it. We need to put the resources where they belong and help our kids in our failing schools, because every child matters, period. It doesn't matter whether they're a minority, majority, it doesn't matter. God made everybody's kids, and we need to take care of them. Last but not least, the election, like Tony said, is extremely important. It's about the future. If you want 4 more years of where we've been, you have a clear choice. If you want something different, if you want someone that's passionate, has gotten the job done, has turned large urban districts around, has been copied in different states successfully, I'd be the person that would get the vote. And so I ask for you for your vote on April 4th. Would you give that to me, Alan?
Are you talking to me? Oh, excuse me. That's one thing the three of us would agree on, is encouraging everybody to vote. I suspect in this room, that's not a tough pitch, but statewide it is. Let me say a couple things. Dean Bill Hank of the Marquette College of Education is here, and we want to thank him and his college for being the sponsor of this. Joe Kearney of the law school, who's been extremely supportive of the public policy programs here, is actually excuse me, I managed to keep it together pretty well here. He's in Chicago, but we want to thank him for all his support. Sitting next to Dean Hank back there is Mike Goucher, the distinguished fellow at the law school here, the master of all debates. You've been getting the backup act here today. And we have an excellent roster of programs coming up that Mike will be moderating, all of which can be found at law.marquette.edu, one of which was just announced today of Peggy Troy, the head of Children's Hospital, on April 20th. So thank you to all of you, both for being here and for being involved. Thank you to Dr. Holtz and to Dr. Evers for being part of this and for putting themselves into the fray. And now's the time you can applaud.